Hello and welcome. I'm your host, author Ryan M. Oliver, and this is the Mighty Books Podcast.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Mighty Books Podcast. Today with me, I have Mary Ann Rose. Mary Ann Rose is a former Catholic religious sister, a nun, educator, and graphic artist. She holds a BFA from William Peter or Patterson University in New Jersey, a master's degree in pastoral spiritual theology, and is a certified Christian life coach. She has been a chronic pain sufferer for over 23 years. Her rare, debilitating, intraceable condition is known as pudendal neuropathy. Mary Ann Rose has written her intimate and personal story with the hope that she can help and encourage other chronic pain sufferers. Mary Ann, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. How you doing, Ryan? Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you for coming on. Actually, you're in the afternoon. You're on the East Coast?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very much still early morning. Well, not early morning, mid-morning here. So awesome. Well, welcome. So today
Thank
we're
you.
here to talk about your book. What's the title of your book?
My book is entitled Behind the Tapestry, My Discovery of God's Grace Amidst Chronic Pain and Loss.
Now, what is the synopsis? I kind of gave a small one, but in your own words, what is the synopsis of your story?
So Behind the Tapestry basically tells the true, compelling story from behind convent walls of all that I went through while in the convent and in dealing with my chronic pain, my chronic condition, and then also not being able to stay in the convent as a result of being sick. So then of all of that whole journey of, deciding to leave the convent and to take care of myself. So it basically tells that story centered on that theme of chronic pain and my faith in the Lord.
Mm. Chronic pain is becoming a huge, I mean, I've seen more people with chronic pain, maybe just because I'm getting older and more, I don't know, aware of it.
Right.
But I feel like chronic pain is becoming more, um, what would you call it? Not aware. We're becoming more aware of it, and we're not just dismissing people's complaints of pain. Have you noticed that too within the
Yes.
coming
Yeah,
years?
I believe it's becoming, if it's not already, an epidemic, and it will become even more so as the years go on, especially now with people suffering, from the lasting effects of COVID and all that. So I think we're going to see a lot more of it in the years to come, unfortunately.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that statement too. I wish it was the opposite, but
Yes.
it is what it
Yep.
is,
Yep.
unfortunately. We can only do what we do best. So I'm curious on your inspiration because it's a very personal thing to talk about your own condition, and then especially someone coming from a very I'm gonna say strict background as a nun. Okay. I
Right.
mean, I was raised Catholic up until
Uh,
about 13-ish, 14-ish, maybe 16. So it's like I know I'm not too heavily involved, wasn't too heavily
right.
involved. But I know can be pretty strict.
Yes.
So what was your inspiration or even courage to decide to tell the story about you and your experiences?
Yeah, it was something that's been on my heart for a long time. I guess my journey really began to really deciding to put it down on paper back in October of 2015.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, it was quite a long journey. It was really the inspiration of the Lord to share my story. I had to do something positive with the pain because it's been such a negative aspect of my life, and a life changing aspect that wasn't positive, isn't positive up until now. So I really felt like I needed to do something positive with it. And then I felt that my time in the convent was very important. And although wasn't able to stay and to become a sister in final vows and really continue in the ministry of helping other people, I felt that together my experience and sharing about my condition would really inspire other chronic pain sufferers to hang in there, other Christians to hang in there. I mean, let's face it, whether we're dealing with chronic pain or whatever, we all have a cross to bear, some of us more than one. And so I feel like my book, although my target audience obviously are chronic pain sufferers, and then the broader audience being Christians, I think my book can relate. I think anybody can relate to my book who's ever had any kind of loss or struggle or challenge. And I think hopefully in my story that they can say, hey, if that woman can make it, then maybe I can make it too.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what feedback have you gotten so far from your book coming out? Actually, when did your book come out first? When did it come?
It just turned 3 the other day. It came out on January 29th in 2021.
Awesome. Happy
Right
late
smack dead in
birthday.
the middle of the pandemic when everybody and you know who was publishing books because they were home for the first time in a really long time, and then they decided, I'm going to be a writer, or I'm going to pen this novel. And I mean that's great for the literature world, because I'm sure there are a lot of great works out there. But when you're an independent author or a self-published author, and now everybody can pretty much self-publish their book. You don't have to wait for a traditional publisher. So many books came out on the market at the same time, so mine perhaps got lost in the shuffle. But
Mhm.
I've gotten a lot of good feedback from it for the people that have read it. There's about 28 reviews on Amazon. The majority of them are 5 stars.
Nice.
So I've gotten a lot of good feedback. A lot of them from other Christians, and maybe Christians who are also chronic pain sufferers. Some just chronic pain sufferers, some just Christians. But what I basically heard overall is whatever a person's story was going into reading the book, they came out of it with something. They were able to glean something from it.
Oh, that's excellent. I mean, that's what you want from a book like yours is because is it technically a memoir?
Yes, it's correct.
Okay. So I mean, you kind of combine memoir with how would you call almost a therapeutic healing type, type self-help-ish book,
Right,
essentially.
right,
I find a
exactly.
lot of those who I've talked to who do memoir
Mm,
turn kind of that way as to how to come out of, in your case, chronic pain or the darkness from trauma or something like
right,
that. So it's
right.
interesting how that kind of morphs in a
Hmm.
good way. It evolves, really, not morphs. I think it
Right,
evolves is probably more appropriate, the word.
right, right.
Now, how long did it take you to write the book from moment of
Yeah.
inspiration to in your
So,
hands?
right. So October, like I said, October 2015 until the end of January of
Okay.
2021. So quite a long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a pretty personal story though to write out. I imagine it took you a lot of time to get all the information out of your head and then organize it in a way
Yes.
that made sense.
Yes.
Now, did you have to do a lot of research at all, or is it just
Well,
kind of mulling it over and reflecting?
I mean, obviously I didn't have to research my story because I know my story, but I researched how to write a memoir because I'm not an English major. My background is in graphic design. So although I've written lots of papers in undergraduate and graduate, and was told at various times, oh, you're a pretty good writer or whatever. Then when I started telling my story to people, oh, that would make a great book, kind of a thing. Um, so I've always enjoyed writing, but it's not my background. So it was like, okay, that's great. I have inspiration to write the book, really want to share my story with others to help others for the most part. But I have no clue about writing a memoir. What do I even do? I didn't even know what a memoir was. If you would have said to me autobiography, I could relate to that, but not memoir. And they are two very different things. So I had to learn what a memoir was, and then really zone in on that memoir being something just a part of your life. It's not the whole of your life like an autobiography would be. So a
Oh,
memoir is just a part of your life, and a part of life. It could be just like in my story, about 8 to 10 years, but a memoir could be just a weekend in somebody's life. The basic idea of a memoir is that it's focused on a theme. So that's what, regardless of the time frame of your life that the memoir talks about, it has to be focused on a theme. So once I learned that and then started to really pull the stories together, um, I have to be honest, my very first draft, which was just for me, which I still have, was 550 pages. So yeah, so quite a lot of typing, quite a lot of getting stuff down. And I think it was very therapeutic for me, because those are stories that there were some stories that came in that first draft that I'm glad didn't make it into the actual book. Because again, I think they were just for me as part of the therapy aspect of writing the book. So then, yeah, so I had to come as I was writing that first draft and then went back to edit it out and different things. I was like, okay, well, this doesn't really fit in with the theme. So then I took this out or that out or whatever. And then kind of came up with a second draft, which was around 400. And then I had a very good friend of mine who had experience, and it was an English major and a very high IQ. She edited and proofread it for me. And then we got it down to about the 320 something that became Behind the Tapestry.
Okay, yeah, wow, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work though. It's a lot of work to do. You just kind of, I'm gonna call it mind vomit all
Yeah.
over the page. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's just like
I
everything
just
needs to
threw it
be
out there.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. Just
And
threw it out
it's as you go on your journey and you realize this is cool, great story. However, not necessarily, it's like you said, the theme,
there. Right.
which is really important. Otherwise, you're just going down rabbit holes you don't need to go down.
Exactly.
Maybe
Exactly.
later, but anyway. Well, that's
Right.
good. So I'm really curious because I know nothing about how to become a nun. How does someone, if they're interested in going into this, you know, area of study, how do you become a nun?
Okay. So first, it started with it's a very long story, but I'll try to
Yeah,
make it as brief as
do,
possible. It
do
just
your
starts
best.
with what the inspiration of what do you feel, God is calling you to. So we believe as Catholics, as devout Catholics, that everybody has a vocation, a calling. So what is it? Is it to marriage? Is it to singlehood? Is it to the priesthood if you're a man, or the religious life if you're a woman? So I had been a graphic designer and always had been single, but felt that I wanted more in my life. Yet I just knew that for some reason I was not being called to the vocation of marriage. For whatever reason, it just wasn't something that I felt called to.
Yeah.
And so I just, various things happened in my life, and had quite a conversion to the Catholic faith in my 20s. Through a prayer meeting that I was introduced to through a very good friend. And then that really kind of like opened up my world in a way that was wider than anything I had ever imagined.
Right.
And then from there, started to get little signs, so to speak, of, perhaps being called to something greater than myself, something beyond myself. And so one thing led to another. I sought out a religious counsel, a priest friend that I knew that I trusted very much. And he said, maybe, God might be calling you to religious life. Is this something that you would consider? And at first I laughed because my ideas of religious life are, Julie Andrews and The Sound of Music, or Whoopi Goldberg and Sister Act. And I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm somewhere between the two, but I'm definitely not one or the other. The other.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, I like to talk way too much. I don't think I could be quiet long enough to, I don't know how. And I'm a little bit of a, whippersnapper. So I don't know too much about, being obedient and listening to others and all of that kind of stuff. But okay, I'm going to be obedient to God and see where He's going to lead me. So one thing led to another, and I visited religious communities, and then found the one that I eventually joined in southern New Jersey, where I'm a native, have lived here, born here, and lived here my whole life, and joined them in the spring of 1999. And then a religious life is in stages, so you don't walk through the door and boom, you're a nun or sister.
Right.
You have to go through stages like you would with even any kind of a profession. So the first stage is something they call the postulancy, where you basically move in, you leave everything behind, your family, you're the world, so to speak. You move in, and I picked a very traditional community in the sense of they still wear habits, which is the dress of their religious founder. A lot of communities today, religious communities today, that they don't require their women that join to wear habits anymore.
Mhm.
But I figured if I was going to do something as radical as enter religious life in the 21st century, I was going to go for it. So I figured I wanted to wear a veil and a habit. So I picked a very traditional community. So I joined, and their postulancy was about a year and a half. And you get to know the community. You're living there. You get to know the community, lots of study. And then you're just really a lot of prayer during that time to say, is this really what God's calling me to? And then if this is really what He's calling me to, is He really calling me to this particular religious family? Because there are many, many religious families in the world, and especially here in the United States. So they're not very big anymore like they were back in the 50s, but they do still exist. So a call to religious life is always a twofold question. Am I really being called? And then if I'm being called, am I really being called to this particular family? So I was discerning that. And then I went on to become a novice, or the 2 year, what they call the 2 year novitiate. So it's a much stricter time. I wasn't allowed to leave for 2 years. I couldn't visit my family. They were allowed to come and see me, but it was a lot less frequent than when I was a postulant. And then that's really an intensive time of study and prayer, and lots of retreats and soul searching and all of that.
Mm.
And then I was a novice for 2 years, and then in November of 2002, I became a sister in temporary vows. I took my vows, and the vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. So poverty, basically, that we don't have any of our own money. Everything is shared communally, even if we work. I was a teacher assistant for a long time, so got paid, but that money was all put together with whatever other sisters were living in the house at the time. Obviously, chastity, that we wouldn't engage in a sexual activity or take on a partner. And then obedience, which is the toughest one for me, that we wouldn't make any decisions on our own, that they have to kind of go through whoever the sister in charge, or what we call the superior, that decisions for my life would be made in communication with the other sisters that were in authority. And then I took the 3 vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience in November, like I said, of 2002. And then every year after that, up until I left in 2000, in the in the summer of 2007. I was there a total of 8 years. Right before getting ready to make final vows, I was 6 months away from making final vows, was when my condition got the better of me. And I felt the Lord saying to me, you don't have to stay here to love me. You don't have to stay here to serve me. It's best if you leave and took care of yourself. Unfortunately, not to say anything bad, but unfortunately, the sisters' compassion towards me and my illness ran its course, so to speak.
Sure.
And they just got to the point where they just didn't want to hear about it anymore. So
Well, I mean, I've heard that before from, just families in general. I mean, you obviously were a religious family, but you're still a
right,
family to some degree, right? And I mean, I've had that before with friends and family. Oh, they're complaining about this issue again. Like, just get over it. It's in your head, blah, 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 blah. But it turns out it's not. There's a lot of neurological issues that come up. So when did you start feeling like there was actually a problem? How long into your experience?
It wasn't long,
Wasn't long.
honestly. Yeah, it wasn't long, and yet I stayed anyway. And a lot of people found that hard to believe. Like, why did you stay so long?
Yeah,
Um, because more than my health, more than being understood for what I was experiencing, um, serving the Lord and fulfilling what I felt His call for me was way more important to me.
right,
So I just figured, He's going to get me through. In all honesty, though, when I went there, I did not know my condition was chronic. It was not diagnosed when I went there. I just went there not feeling well. It didn't actually play out until after I was there for the 8 years. And I didn't actually get diagnosed with pudendal neuropathy until about a year and a half to 2 years before leaving.
oh,
So it was, yes, there was lots of chronic pain without really, and that's very often with pudendal neuropathy, at perhaps any type of neuropathy, but specifically pudendal neuropathy, because the pudendal nerve is a small, very intricate, delicate nerve in the pelvic floor. So it's very hard to diagnose, and it often gets misdiagnosed or undiagnosed, and misdiagnosed for a lot of other things. They said I had so many other things, which during the 8 years I was in the convent, I was treated for. At one point, they said I had a very serious bladder condition. And so I was popping prescription medication, 5 or 6 pills every 2 hours. And I did that for months at a time. And all well and good if that's what it was, and I was getting better, but the pain wasn't going away. So there was a lot of that. So that added to the difficulty in the convent, because it was a lot of a roller coaster type of a thing, where I would get a diagnosis. Okay, this is finally what it is. Oh, okay, there's no cure, but they're gonna treat me. I'm gonna feel better. Okay, then I go through all that. Nope, wasn't that. And so each time I would go to the doctor and come back and say to the sisters, well, Dr. So-and-so was wrong. It's not such and such. They just rolled their eyes or shook their heads, or they didn't really know what to say at some points. And then at some other point, they just didn't care anymore. They just didn't want to hear about it anymore.
It sounds kind of like to me like it's a condition of boy who cried wolf. That's kind of what they're thinking. Oh, they're doing it for attention. Blah,
Exactly.
blah, blah.
That's exactly what that was exactly what I was labeled. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, which is not when you're telling the truth. How frustrating is that when you're trying to tell it when you're telling the truth? Like, this really hurts. Like, I'm not making this up. I don't want to be in pain. I don't want to be a pain.
Right.
I want to be able to go throughout my life and do everything I want to do with you guys,
Right.
and not have this to be a hindrance on my daily life.
Exactly.
So, did it? I assume it affected your daily life pretty.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. With pudendal neuropathy, because of where the nerve is located, sitting down for any period of time unaided with cushions or anything like that is very difficult. So it
Oh,
became sitting in the chapel to pray for hours on end on a hard wooden chapel, old-fashioned convents with old-fashioned. It became very difficult. And when I had to ask permission to bring in a cushion to the chapel so that I could sit, well, just so nobody else that comes in, outside the convent, can see it, kind of a thing. Oh, don't rub, anything that smells, like icy hot or anything that smells bad. Don't rub it on yourself and then, go out in public, because then other people could smell it and you're drawing attention to yourself.
weird.
These kinds of things. So yes, it very much affected my everyday life, and I didn't want it to. I mean, believe me, if prayer could have sent it away, it would have been gone a long time ago, because nobody prayed harder than me for it to go away. And I had everybody praying for me. I went to healing masses. I mean, you name it, I did. I just didn't do the medical route. I did the whole spiritual thing, get anointed, and it just wasn't going away.
Yeah.
Well, you're not holy, and well, you're not holy enough. Well, you don't pray hard enough. Well, you don't want this bad enough, or it's in your head and you're not happy. And so
Yeah.
those were the things I heard over the years.
Yeah, I know from my experiences just with medical and spiritual, mental, just journeys in general, the healing of prayer to me is a internal thing. When it comes to the physical, venturing to the medical field is kind of a given. It should be a given, and they are basically being presented to you by by God or whoever it is, you know, um, to help you
Right,
feel better. So it's like that is kind of your like, hey, this person's here to help you out.
right,
They were sent here. It's not everything can't be fixed,
right.
unfortunately, just by prayer. Otherwise, we have a much better world than we do right
Oh,
now.
absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
You know what I
For
mean?
sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I'm curious, how are you feeling these days?
Um, well, it's never going to go away. So
Hmm.
it's an ongoing incurable condition. There are many treatment options, and like so many illnesses, chronic or cancer or whatever, it's not one size fits all. So everybody's experience of eudendal neuropathy will be different, because everybody's eudendal nerve will be inflamed or pinch or entrapped in a different area along the route of the nerve. Um, so I have my very good days. I have my so days, and then I have very bad days. It all comes. I don't even think about it anymore. I just get up and do my business. If it's a bad day, I just try not to push myself too much. I try to rest a little bit more. During the day, I try to use some ice that helps or whatever. I had to stop working I left the convent in 2007. I got my master's degree that summer. And then I went to work in the church. I wanted to stay in ministry. So I went to work as a layperson, but I went to work in the church. I ran two religious education programs at two different parishes. But unfortunately, my condition got so bad in the summer of 2013, I had to stop working full time, and then I applied for Social Security disability. So I only work part-time now.
Okay, well, I mean, at least you can still continue to live your life and you can still be at service to something, you know what I mean?
Oh, sure. I,
Yeah,
I
that
if
helps.
if I was gonna feel sorry for me, believe me, and I went that whole route of feeling sorry for myself. Don't I'm no saint when it comes to that, believe me.
I don't think
Nobody
anybody is.
nobody could throw a pity party like Marianne, let me tell you. But I went all that, and that was getting me nowhere. So I said, if I'm going to cry and stay in bed, then I'll never get anything done. Or if I'm going to say, well, when I feel better tomorrow, I'll do that. Well, I might not feel better tomorrow. So I just get up and do what I have to do. If it's a good day, I just go with it, do as much as I can. And if it's not, then I just try to take it a little bit easier on myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I've myself dealt with chronic pain with my back just from prior injuries. And you get to the point where it's like, yeah, it hurts, but you kind of grit your teeth and go about it, muscle through it. It's like it's
Right.
so fun. You're sitting there. I mean, for me in the car, sitting down when your back is literally attacking you, it's just spasming like
Yes.
crazy, and you're gripping the steering
Yeah.
wheel so that you can focus on the drive.
Driving. Yeah.
And you're not, because I still
Right.
have to go get groceries for the house,
Right.
to go pick my
Right.
kids up,
Right.
you got to
Right.
live your life and
Absolutely.
you can't. So, and then you find, you feel grateful for the days that you don't hurt and you just manage when you
Yes.
do. And you
Yes.
find coping mechanisms that
Yes.
help different, like you said, sometimes medications, sometimes
Yes.
stretching. I'm sure there's various things you have figured out in your in your experience.
Yes,
So
yes.
you have to survive the day. Otherwise,
Yes.
what's the point?
Right.
So what's the point? So I want to get back to the actual publishing of the book now, because your story is very interesting. And we could probably go on for several hours about the ins and outs of becoming a nun and everything. And the fact you went into graphic design is very interesting. I don't ever think of nun and graphic design. I never would put the two together. So I think it's just intriguing to me.
Thank you.
And maybe a conversation for a different day.
Other time, sure,
Yeah,
sure.
another time. Now, so let's look at the aspect of writing and publishing, actually publishing the book. We talked about writing the book. How
Right.
about publishing it? How was that experience for you?
Okay, so I wrote to just about every famous person I could think of, and said I started the letter with, "I'm not asking you for money, but I'm getting ready to publish a memoir,
Yeah,
and I'm wondering if you have any contacts that you can put me in touch with, because I really wanted to go the traditional route
sure.
because I didn't have money for self-publishing, and I know that it's very expensive. Now, you would think with my graphic design experience that I would have been able to navigate how to totally, really, to the truest sense of that word, self-published, like do everything on my own. But there was no way that I was going to do that. Besides the chronic pain, or as a result of chronic pain, I suffer from depression. And so sometimes, even in writing the book, I would get stuck with something and I'd pull my hair out of my head and I'd be like, whose idea was this anyway, or who thought this was a good idea.
It's another
So
form of torture,
depression and
actually.
everything. I'm sorry.
It's another form of torture, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the depression and the chronic pain or whatever, I said, I just don't have, and I'm middle aged. So I'm not, 20 years younger. I just didn't have the head I probably could have figured it all out because I am somewhat computer savvy. And like I said, I probably could have figured it out, but I was in no mood to do that. It was excruciating enough to just write the book, and actually get it down to something that people would actually find interesting, that there was no way I was going to do that. So I tried to go the traditional route, and I didn't have money for literary agent, but I wrote to a lot of Christian publishers, and I submitted query letters and even sent parts of the manuscript or whatever, and got no interest. I even submitted to a couple of Christian manuscript submission companies where you like upload your book to their sites for a fee, and then they like blast it out to traditional publishers. No matter what I did, I wasn't getting anywhere. And then
Yeah.
out of all of the famous people that I reached out to, just a handful of them had the decency to even write back and say, "That's very lovely about your book, but I can't help you." Very
Mm,
few, very few, very few offered any assistance at all. And then even less actually responded. Most of them just ignored my letter completely. And I can understand. I mean, I'm sure they get, letters from people all the time. But anyway, so then I was like, well, it might just be a nice 550-page, paper holder or cup holder or something on my desk, and it might not go anywhere. But I knew it was too important to just sit there. So I'm like, Lord, how am I going to get this book out there? And just started saving my money and said, well, let's see what we can do. And continued to write. And then it took just about over a year for my friend to complete all the edits, because she has a life also and a child with special needs. And so as she was doing that, I was doing all of the other stuff. And then one thing led to another. And I actually had, I don't know what you want to call them. I call them scam artists, but I don't know if you want to call them a hybrid publisher or whatever, reached out to me. A vanity press reached out to me here in New Jersey and said, "Oh, I found, stuff about your book online, and, we'd love to publish it or whatever." But of course, there's always a fee. So you put up the initial amount of money, and then they scammed me out of thousands of dollars after that to do the marketing, which they never did. They promised me 4 or 5 things and delivered on 2 of them. And then they didn't want to know anything after that.
right.
So I got burned, because really the truth of the matter is, writing a book is one thing, marketing, promoting, and selling it is a completely different thing.
Completely.
And I didn't know what I was doing in the writing, but figured that out. I was even more clueless about the marketing and the promoting of it. And I did educate myself. I took courses online. I got paid to get in touch with professionals to learn everything. Did research online, talked to people, read numerous books. So I did some things right, but I would say the majority of what I did was not right. And so the promotion and the marketing just got way too costly. And I just started doing what I could do free on my own. Prior to the book coming out, there was no big launch, so that was another mistake that I made. And then, really pushed it afterwards, after once it came out. Then the publishing company got me the website, and I set up the Facebook page, and was all over social media. It was on Twitter and Instagram and Pinterest, and you name it, I was there. And promotion sites online, free ones, paid ones. And sold about a little over 100 copies.
Okay. Yeah, it's a lot of work.
The average book in its life, the average book in its lifetime, in its entire shelf life, average book only, and that's traditionally published also and self-published, only sells about 250. Believe it or not, those are really staggering numbers, but it's the truth. So I was like, well, you know what? After the sales were dismal in the beginning, I said, you know what? I started to get really depressed. I said, I can't do that. Maybe the Lord just wanted this story for one or two people, and not even here. It's sold. It could be bought internationally. It's not in other languages, but you could buy my book if you live in Australia, because you can get it online. Okay. Right. On South Africa, in the Philippines, wherever. Okay. So I was like, maybe the Lord just wanted the story to be read by one or two people that I don't even know. They bought it, they read it, it helped them in some way, and that's it. That was the purpose. Now I don't know that, but maybe that God knows, and that's the purpose, and that's it. And if that's the case, you're never going to sell another copy. Yep. And so I had to kind of resign myself to that, and somehow, after a very long struggle and a lot of depression, just say, you know what, I'm okay with that. But that doesn't stop me from doing whatever I can do to continue to get the word out about it.
Right. Yeah, you're here. You're talking about it right now. So there you
and
go.
I appreciate you allowing me to come here.
Yeah, heck yeah. That's the whole point of this podcast creation, was to get people, because when I started out, it was kind of similar. I had a coach that was really good and helped me out, and I still can use him from time to time if I need to, but I kind of know the process now that I can do my own thing. Yeah, the marketing is monstrous. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned is, if you just get out in the community and just do face to face, you could do talks. I mean, you got the background where you could just go up there and start talking to people about chronic pain. And especially anything to do with Christianity, people are going to listen most of the time. So you could really just bring your book and talk about it. People will want to dive in more on your story. So I would, if you haven't already done talks, I would highly recommend doing some. If you
I've done a little bit, but not much.
Cool. I mean, yeah, and obviously chronic pain, it makes it a little more challenging to do, but that to me is what does he say? It's like, when you speak, you sell books, basically. People will it's just, I like, oh, I like this person. I want to learn more about them. So I've always thought that was pretty interesting. And you've got a true story you could speak to very simply, very easily too. Okay, so what do you hope others will learn from your book when they pick it up and finally taste these, sample your food, sample your book. I keep I'm hungry. Sample your book.
Not a lot of people know about pudendal neuropathy. It's a very it's weird. There's a lot of people that suffer from it. A lot of people, and I know that because I belong to many support groups on Facebook.
Sure.
So there are a lot of people that suffer from it, yet they say statistically it's rare. And it is the kind of condition where you can go 10, 15 years without a proper diagnosis. You can be misdiagnosed or just not diagnosed at all, just told it's in your head. So perhaps somebody who has similar symptoms to me and doesn't know even how to research what they might have online to even find, because you just have to type in pudendal neuropathy or any kind of pelvic pain, it'll come right. I mean, there's so many organizations out there, thank God, that can help people, and that helped me also. But if somebody doesn't know that that's what they have, maybe pick up my book, start reading it, and go, oh, well, I have those symptoms, maybe this is what I have, and then begin a conversation with their doctor. Okay, if not for that purpose, then just with chronic pain in general, they already know what they have. They already have a different chronic pain, let's say fibromyalgia or something along those lines. Still to just say, well, she did this for her pain, maybe I can try that. Or she just really relies on her faith. Well, I'm a laid back Catholic, or I'm a fallen away Catholic. Maybe I should find my way back to the church, or just to a relationship with Jesus, and really rely on him and allow him to give me the grace to deal with this. Unfortunately, I'm sure you're aware, statistically, a lot of people with chronic pain will take their own lives. And in particular, pudendal neuropathy, I learned in this whole journey, I learned that of all of the chronic pain conditions, of all the neurological conditions or neuropathic pain conditions, the suicide rate amongst pudendal neuropathy sufferers is very great, is very high. There have been many women and people from these groups on Facebook where I've heard of people that have taken their own lives, and young people in their 20s. And so that breaks my heart, because I want to say that although, believe me, I know that despair. I know that sense of, I cannot take this pain for another moment. How am I going to get through the next day, the next year? Although I know that pain, there is a better tomorrow. And I only know that, not because the pain's any better, but I only know that because of the Lord. And I only know that because of my relationship with the Lord. And he has given me the strength. And I believe that he will give the strength. Now, saying that he's going to give the strength doesn't mean he's going to take the pain away, but he can give people the strength to carry on. And there is always something good, to at least one thing that you can be grateful for and to hang on to and say, this person needs me. I have to, carry on with my life for as long as that is, but I have to, depend on the Lord for that grace. So I want people to come to the end of my book and to feel hopeful that a life of chronic pain, the other C word, as some of us like to say, not cancer, but chronic pain, although it's not deadly like cancer, and I don't downplay cancer in any way. Chronic pain is the other C word that can change people's lives. That although you have chronic pain, you can still have resemblance of a normal life, and that it could be filled with good moments. It doesn't mean every day is going to be, happy and skippy and all that, but that it can be good. And you have to find those moments. You have to work extra hard to find those moments. And I think my book shows that I worked hard to find those moments and to get where I am today. And it hasn't been easy. Without the Lord, I would have given up a really long time ago.
Find what motivates you and stick to it. That's really what it is. It really is. So, it's a heavy thing to talk about with chronic pain and what the consequences of it can be. So, I mean, hopefully everyone can find their way in either relieving the pain or finding a reason just to continue and not unfortunately go down a very dark path, because it can happen and it's unfortunate. I mean, we just have to realize that life is full of both dark and light. That's the dichotomy of life there. It's how it goes. So if you can aim towards the light with people who understand you, that's really big, because if you're told, like when you were in the convent, oh, just get over it, it's all in your head, that's not going to help your mental health at all with what you're dealing with. And physical pain will absolutely mess with your mental health 120%. It's done with me, it's done with my family members. So I can see that being a whole thing. So aim towards people who have a positive outlook and a good, empathetic ear, I will say.
A strong support system is also very vital.
Absolutely.
Very vital to surround yourself. And that doesn't mean everybody's going to understand, because I'm sorry to say, unless you suffer from chronic pain, and I wouldn't wish any chronic pain, but specifically my type of chronic, I wouldn't wish it on a dog. So I don't want people to understand in that sense. But it is important to surround yourself with people that could at least say, listen, I don't get your pain, but I get you and I love you and I'm here for you. Yep. And that's what I got when I left the convent. My family, my father was still alive. I came back, in my mid 30s to return to my Italian American parents who took me back, and they welcomed me with open arms. And if I didn't have that, I would have no place to live, because I came out of the convent. I had nothing. I had no money, no car, no job, no clothes. No, I didn't even have the basics. Found very supportive friends, returned to supportive friends, found new supportive friends and coworkers, and a wonderful family. And they are my rock still today, all these years later.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that. So for those who are interested, where can we get a copy of your book?
Yes, definitely on Amazon, and it's in two. It's only in English, but it's in two versions. You can get an actual soft copy of it, or you could get the ebook, which is great. And so definitely on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, Books Run, you name it, it's there. All you have to do is just type in either just Behind the Tapestry and my last name, or the whole title with the subtitle, because there are other books with similar titles, or just even my last name, and it will come up just about, anywhere books are sold online. It is not sold in a brick and mortar store, so you can't go to Barnes and Noble and find it on the shelf, unfortunately. Just costs a lot of money to have physical books in stores like that.
Mhm.
I just couldn't, it was something I couldn't do. But anywhere online, there's so many places, and thrift books. Oh my gosh, there's just so many places. You just type, and you can get it at it's even on eBay. You can get it at a discount. And almost all of those big sites will offer both versions, the soft cover and the ebook.
Excellent.
There's a lot of
Okay.
people that don't like to shop on Amazon, so it's available so many other places.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We are no shortage of locations to buy from, I think, these
Yeah,
days.
that's true.
We're just not. So, well, great, Marianne. Thank you so much for coming on here and talking to me very openly about your experience with chronic pain and your time in the convent. And I hope it was an enjoyable experience for you.
Very much so. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
My absolute pleasure. Well, I hope you guys really enjoyed this. Go check her book out, help her out, give her some feedback, reviews. Authors love reviews. It's just something we kind of live for. We wrote a book for you. It took a long time. She took quite a while to get hers out there, but it's a powerful message. So go out there, listen to it, share it with friends and family who might be suffering from chronic pain, maybe even what she's been going through. Who knows? Might help some people out. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. And as always, stay mighty and keep reading.
Are you an author? Do you know someone who is? If so, then message me, Ryan Oliver, at ryanmoliver.com to set up a free appointment to discuss being showcased on the Mighty Books podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the Mighty Books YouTube channel and share the link to this and more episodes with your friends and family. Thanks for listening. So long for now. Stay mighty and keep reading.